Good evening. It must have been late 87 or early 92 when I first met Harry Carruthers. I can't be sure, it was a funny 5 years. It was just after my oyster farm failed. Easy mistake. How was I to know that freshwater pearls aren't made by putting oysters into fresh water? I'd seeded what I called the breeding pond with several hundred, when the council came round wanting to know why I'd been dumping shellfish in what they called the boating lake. Well, I tried to give 'em the old nod and a wink, and told them that I'd cut 'em in for a slice of the action when the necklaces came on stream. So they went and got someone from the zoo to explain to me how oysters actually work, and then, I must admit, I did feel a little bit silly. Still, the man who never made a mistake never made anything, as I told the magistrate a few days later, to which he asked me if I'd ever actually made anything, and while I was thinking about that, he gave me £10,000 in 7 days, or 6 months in chokey. I immediately contacted all my Facebook friends regarding crowdsourcing 10 grand in tiny individual increments, and quickly realised I was looking at 26 weeks of slopping out in one straight stretch. That was when I met Harry Carruthers. I was sipping a Buckfast tonic wine in one of the better bus shelters in Stockwell and brooding on the perfidy of internet affection when I felt a tap on my shoulder. It wasn't the first time I'd imagined bathroom fittings sprouting out of my body. Too much Bucky will do that to you. But this time, even as I felt the tap on my shoulder, I felt a hand on my plug. Whirling round in a mixture of outrage and opportunism, I looked for the first time into those mesmerising blue-grey eyes. "Hello," he said. "I work for the government. How would you like to do a little job for King and Country?" "Excuse me," I said, "but either you've not been keeping up with things for the last 60 years, or I've missed something important in the last 24 hours. "Good man," he said. "That's just the sort of attention to detail we like at the office." At a very slight signal from him, an Austin Allegro with tinted windows drove out of the shadows and spluttered to a halt beside us. He opened the back door and motioned me in. I shuffled across the greasy orange velour so he could squeeze in beside me. In the front sat a driver in a uniform. I knew it at once as the uniform of a Cow and Gate milkman from the spring-summer collection of 1956. It wasn't hard to tell. Cow and Gate were big players on the fashion scene throughout the 50s, and their uniforms changed every season, premiering with a 4-page splash in the Illustrated London News before being seen on the high street, on a milk float. Beside him sat a thick-set man with no discernible neck, smoking a Lithuanian Marlboro. The driver turned the key and the starter motor span, having no effect at all on the rest of the engine. After another few goes, Carruthers opened his door, I did likewise, and, assisted by several Russians, Iranians, and Chinese gymnasts whose cars just happened to be following us, we pushed the Allegro for a few miles until we were outside an ordinary-looking garage door in Vauxhall. We waited. Nothing happened. After a few minutes, the thick-set man got out and gave the door a kick. It glided upwards until it jammed halfway. Ducking under, Carruthers and I entered, and whilst the heavy and the driver were Morris dancing in the hope that the Russians, Chinese and Iranians would get bored and go away, we climbed up a concrete stairwell until we entered an almost perfect recreation of a dingy government office. As I looked at the authentic grey filing cabinets, the brown lino and the green enamel lampshades, the solid 6-drawer desks with Underwood typewriters and Rolodexes on them, I realised it was a dingy government office. "Welcome to MI4, said Carruthers. "You've probably been wondering what happened to us." "Damn," I said. "Damn, damn, damn. I asked my mother when I was 10 who were MI1. I did an A-level project on what became of MI2, and my Cambridge dissertation was called Whither MI3, but I just never thought to ask." "No," he said, adding emolliently, "most people never get beyond 2. Over a spam fritter lightly drizzled with an HP jus and a tomato reduction, served on a bed of Brussels sprouts and washed down with a carafe of wing carnis, he outlined the mission that lay ahead of us. "I take it you've heard of the Ark of the Covenant," he said. "Of course," I replied. "The chest that contained the 10 Commandments given to tablets of stone to Moses on Mount Ararat. It was captured by the Nazis, but every time one of them opened it, he melted. After a while, Hitler got fed up trying to harness its awesome power for his own diabolical ends, if all it was going to do was make his best generals go all runny, until he just thought, sod it, if the Americans want it that badly, they can bloody well have it. I believe they keep it under the spare bed in the back bedroom of the White House." "Yes, everybody knows that," he muttered impatiently. "But have you ever heard of the Stick of the Covenant?" "The what?" I expostulated, which is not something people often do these days. "The memory stick of the Covenant. After God had given Moses the first 10 Commandments, he realised, being all-knowing, all-seeing and eternal, that mankind would need a lot of other laws as things got more complicated than just trekking through the desert trying not to starve involves. So he jotted everything else that anyone would ever need to know and nipped down Mount Ararat to catch up with Moses. And that is where the Old Testament stops," he concluded sententiously. "And I've not seen anyone do that for a while either." "No, it doesn't," I interrupted. "There's a whole lot of begetting and begatting and kings doing one another over after the bit about Moses." But Carruthers batted away my quibble, eager to get on with the plot. According to an ancient Hebrew scroll, discovered hidden in the sarcophagus of an Egyptian mummy, buried underneath the high altar of Fountains Abbey by Druids, and translated by a deaf-mute Buddhist monk in a monastery in Basingstoke's twin town in Nepal, this is what happened next. "And the Lord caught up with Moses, and said unto him, Hold on, Mo, thou shalt be needing these. And he showed unto Moses many more tablets, yea, there were 100, yea, even 100, for the Lord had thought of everything. Then Moses cried out to him, saying, O Lord, mine arms are sore weary and aching from carrying the first 10, and 5 of them are a bit waffly. Lo, even as thou usest Mount Ararat as thy jotter, so wilt thou send a host of angels to carry all these terms and conditions before us? And the Lord didst answer him, saying, No, I'll put it all on a stick, and thou shalt read it on that tablet which is yet to come. And he gaveth unto Moses a tiny rod, made of shell, no bigger than a man's thumb, with a narrow mouth in one end, in which lay 5 golden teeth. And Moses said, That's better, O Lord, I shall place it in my loincloth for safe keeping. And the Lord said, No, I don't think so. And he brought forth blue tack, and did stick the rod on the back of the first tablet, even the one that hadst all the stuff about murder and coveting on it. Well, I said, it certainly sounds like an authentic ancient Hebrew text that's been deliberately left out of the Bible by an enormous conspiracy involving everyone from the Romans to the KGB. So do we know what happened to the Stick of the Covenant? King Nebuchadnezzar is said to have worn it in his crown. Julius Caesar carried it as an amulet. In the 16th century, the Medicis gave it to Leonardo da Vinci to interpret. The greatest genius of his age, he laboured for 20 years with a 3-dimensional abacus to read the stick, but only produced one coherent phrase. Thou shalt not stick bangers up cats' arses. The Medicis weren't best pleased with that, although Leonardo had, whilst working on the problem, inadvertently come up with the first practical design for a gas stove. After that, Isaac Newton dropped it, which gave him an idea. Robert Hooke dropped it on a mattress and saw it bounce, which gave him an idea. And Thomas Edison attempted to upload it to a phonograph. Now, as we all know, it's an absolute bugger to upload digital files to wax cylinders, so all Edison got out of it was a muffled man's voice with a Tennessee accent saying, Thou shalt not nick Lecky from the Lecky Company. At that, a light bulb suddenly appeared over Edison's head, which is how he invented the light bulb. And after that, I inquired. After that, it all gets a bit confusing. Charles Lindbergh apparently flew it across the Atlantic and gave it to Nazi sympathisers. All they could get from it was the disembodied voice of Charles Darwin saying, "No, stop it, that's not what I meant." In the chaos that enveloped the Third Reich as it fell, a plane left Berlin, heading for Buenos Aires. It crashed in the unmapped jungles of Paraguay. Our best information is that the Stick of the Covenant lies scattered on one of 15 mountains in South America, along with Eva Braun's lipstick and Rudolf Hess's dental records. Our mission, if you want to be part of it, is to find that plane, fill those teeth if we can, wear that lipstick if we must, but above all, find the absolute law that God gave unto Moses.